Okay, I'd just like to read this. Thank you for coming this evening. This is Board Policy 1230, public comment at board meetings. The Board of Education encourages public comment on school-related matters at board meetings, as outlined in this policy. To allow for public comment, a period not to exceed 30 minutes shall be set aside during the first part of each board meeting for public comment, with priority given to comments on items on the meeting's agenda. A second 30-minute time period will be set aside at the end of each board meeting for public comment on matters pertaining to the district, but not on the agenda. These periods may be extended by a majority vote of the board. Presentations should be as brief as possible, and no speaker will be permitted to speak for longer than 5 minutes. Please conduct yourself in a civil manner. Thank you. Next up, we have correspondence. We have no correspondence. Public comment session for items that are on tonight's agenda. No? Okay, no. TVTA presentation.
So almost 2 years ago, to the day, pretty close, we shut down school because of the pandemic. And thankfully this week, we are finally getting to see our students' faces again, and we can see them smile about being in school and just really enjoy what education is supposed to be about. During those 2 years, a lot of things transpired, and people don't always know all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So we thought as the TVTA that it was very appropriate to recognize you, the Board of Education, as truly volunteers in the community, because you come here, you do this, you hear things in between board meetings, you deal with things that come up that you have no control over, and people forget that you do that really out of the goodness of your heart, because there's no pay for this job, there's long hours and lots of complaints come your way, and many times you don't hear the positives. So we wanted to recognize you tonight as partners in education. Matt's got some things to hand out to each of you. And again, to thank you for all that you've done during this difficult time, and just in general for your volunteerism as board members. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'll give it to her. Yep. Thank you, guys. That means a lot to us. Next up, we have bid presentation and discussion for the 2022 Capital Improvement Project. Hi, Corey.
How's it going today?
You should be able to advance the slides there with that.
Just side to side.
That's there you go.
Just side
To the right. Oh, let me just make sure that.
before I break it. All right, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. As everybody's aware, we just bid phase 2 of the capital project. GC bids came in on Tuesday. We de-scoped yesterday, made a recommendation this morning on what we recommend to proceed. That will be coming through in the slides. So just on a positive note as we move forward, there's been 0 lost time for accidents on this project, which is great. project schedule for phase one. I know phase one is kind of lagging. We did take some areas over sooner than we were supposed to. We just did a bunch of work over President's Day week. We did a bunch of work in the main entrances. We replaced some doors. Everybody's scheduled to come back the week of spring break and do a bunch more finishes in this main entrance vestibule. And then we were working closely with Dr. Silver, Bob, and Jesse about trying to start painting of the ephes and the pavers out front, hopefully in May if the weather lets us. And then that will leave us, in the summer, that'll leave us some of the interior finishes in the vestibule, not much. And the high school cafeteria and elementary school gym, because those are two spaces that we can't really get into until summer hits due to all the activities that go on in those spaces. Over spring break, we were hoping to have a bunch of the interior work in this vestibule buttoned up. We'll have the new wall in between the security booth and the, I call it the holding area, but where the parents will sit while they're waiting for their children to come out. What I do now.
Try the center button. There we go. Yeah, just press that center button.
Okay. So phase two, the bids came in favorably in phase two. We're hoping to do, if everything goes well tonight and the project gets approved, we're hoping to do a kickoff meeting the week of March 14th, project scheduling that week, and really trying to get the ball rolling. Jesse has actually been able to get us a couple areas sooner than later, so we're hoping we can get the contractors on board and materials ordered to maybe have a May 1st start instead of a May 30th is what we're looking for. And we're going to focus on the family consumer science and the bathrooms and some ceilings to start off earlier than later is what the goal is. When we de-scoped everybody, there are no concerns with manpower, materials. Everybody's willing to order everything on time. We did have a conversation with them about stating that as long as they follow the project guidelines, that the district will pay for materials that have been ordered and are on site or stored with the proper photos and insurances in place, which is typical in the front end specs. So let's talk quick budget. So right now, if we move forward with the capital, with phase two, for phase one and phase two, we're roughly at $8.2 million in contractor costs at the moment. Phase one, roughly 4.1 million. Phase two, roughly 4.125 million. We have a contingency left of over $600,000. We have allowances left of over $341,000. And we have unencumbered monies, which means monies that aren't projected to go towards anything, of roughly $443,000. We don't have any approved change orders at this time. As of right now, we've been using the allowances, and the allowances spent to date have been roughly $38,000. We have potential change orders of $112,000, which end up going into the allowances once we review them and approve them, depending on how the district would like to move forward with those. If we don't take any of the alternates, it's roughly $1.1 million left for phase two. So we've had multiple meetings with Jesse, and since we started this whole design in 2019, Jesse has stressed to all of us how bad the bathrooms are. We have original tile in the bathrooms. They really need for us to get in there, remodel them, make sure that there isn't any water leaking, items like that. There's a concern that if we wait too much longer, one, the prices will go up because material has been still escalating, and two, the district could be dealing with more concerns in those bathrooms than what they really need to at the moment. So we were asking that we move forward with those if possible. And then pushing, so for phase one, we're actually trying to push for a substantial completion date of July instead of August, the end of July instead of the end of August. Phase two, we did the D-scope. Everybody's confident in their bids. There's no concerns. We're really hoping that we can get in earlier and try to get the ball rolling. A lot of that's going to depend on submittals. I know there's some concerns in the first project. In the specs for the second phase, we made some alterations that will hopefully help us control some of these items that we had a hard time getting contractors to submit. Do you guys have any questions, concerns?
My one question is with the materials, with everything going on in the world, they think they're not gonna have issues getting it, so they need to move forward.
There is a concern with materials, but there isn't a major concern because we're not doing we're not doing a lot of specialty items. We're doing tile, paint, the weight room, it's steel and concrete. We're not really ordering specialty items. The only thing that we were trying to work around is casework is normally hard to get because there's a long lead time on it. So right now we're going to work with the GC to see if there's some things that we can put in place to order them quicker, so we don't have to wait to field verify the dimensions.
I just wanna avoid what happened last summer with delays after delays or whatever.
And that's
Everybody does, but.
And that's one of the things that we put in the front end specs for submittals. It actually, if they don't have them all in, it alters their pay apps where they can't get paid to try to help put the pressure on them to meet their deadlines and to get items ordered. And the other thing we're not going to do this summer is take an area over sooner than what we're supposed to if we don't have the materials, manpower, and a plan in place.
Once bitten, twice shy.
So phase two takes care of 11 of the 24 bathrooms. And the alternates 1, 2, and 3 will be spread out over the remainder, the 13 remaining bathrooms will be spread out over alternate 1, 2, and 3. And that'll finish all the bathrooms.
Not all. Don't count me, there's 40 bathrooms in here, 35. There's a lot of bathrooms in this building, more than what we thought. This takes care of the ones that were of the most concern. This takes care of the bathrooms that Jesse had the biggest concerns with at the moment. There's still concerns with the other ones, just not as great as these ones, because these are the oldest ones.
So they're the ones that really need it.
Yes. Yes, a bunch of them are up here in the original building. And then we have a bunch down in the center where it's a high-use area, high school cafeteria, that's a high-use bathroom. Down by the elementary school cafeteria, those are some high-use bathrooms.
Anyone else? No? Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the budget presentation. Mr. Whitaker.
Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? Which one?
You can use the center one to advance to the next slide.
Yeah, sure I can. You'll be back over here shortly. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about the program component, which is really the largest component of any budget, and it's the nuts and bolts of where we go. Okay, I told you this wasn't going to work, right? Okay, what makes up the program component? Legal's in a couple places, but the legal and the program component with our lawyers, we have a retainer schedule with them. So that's basically information, and we can call them at any time without any extra charges, but that's where the legal portion goes. Regular school. It's all the regular school that takes place on a daily basis within the schools, as opposed to special ed, which is a special ed within our district and outside the district, is separated out for a variety of reasons. OC-Ed, our family and consumer sciences, our agriculture, all those programs are in there. Other instructional areas, two major components of what we do here. It has to do with computer-aided instruction and library. And that's what those two areas are. Services, we provide a tremendous amount of services to the students in our district. Guidance, nursing, psychology, what's the third one? That's it. Athletics and extracurricular. The athletics and extracurricular cover not only our interscholastic athletics, but our in-house athletic program, phys ed program during the course of the year. And our extracurricular is all the great clubs and different organizations that we have that we work within the school. Transportation is not only our daily busing to and from for our students during the school day, it has to deal with our late runs, field trips, athletics, and also off-campus transportation. We have about 3 or 4 locations right now where we transport students back and forth on a daily basis. Employee benefits, we all know health insurances, all the insurances, the retirement systems, and anything else associated with that. Interfund transfers. Every year you're going to see this line item. 2 areas where they show up. Summer programming. Summer programming, not to get too detailed, but it's covered 80%. So if I have a $100,000 expense for the year, the aid on summer programs is 80%. So we have to make up the difference in that. It actually is a very good aid ratio, much higher than most others. So that interfund transfer means money that we have to take from the capital fund, the general fund, and make sure that the federal fund is equal at the end of the year. Okay. Proposed for this coming school year. Legal is $37,500. Last year, after the budget was voted on and adopted, our legal firm lowered the retainer for the year, and that should be the same number this year. Regular school, teaching, everything, supplies and materials, contractual, is up $280,000 for a grand total of almost $8.5 million. Special education, on campus, off campus, up $278,000 for just under $5 million. OC-Ed, $682,000 with a $42,000 increase. Some great news in the OC-Ed world. We are coming to the point where we're going to have a family and consumer science program again with a family and consumer science teacher. But we're also remodeling this area. So we are making sure some of the capital project is not paying for everything that's going on in that room. But as we get more up-to-date appliances, we need some up-to-date things to work on. Like we all have a certain type of stove, you need the proper pots and kettles. Other instructional areas, minus $92,000. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do about those 2 areas? Well, one of the big ones in library. The elementary school librarian had been here many years. We now have a new librarian that is relatively new to the field, so there was a big salary adjustment there. Other instructional areas include our computer-aided instruction. Working with Aaron, Aaron's done a good job in planning out where we're going year to year to year, but there are some reductions coming up this year, and I'm going to get into something in a little bit about a gap and where we're going to address those. The services, the psychological, the nursing and everything is up to $31,000. Athletics is up just over $5,000. Transportation, this is one that's, I'm being very conservative now with just an increase of $15,000. Our transportation cost next year is basically going to be determined by CPI, which will not come out until late May, early June. CPI is not going to be pretty this year. There will not be a point something or a 2 point something or a 3 point something. Estimates are the CPI will run between 6 and 7.5%. However, we do have, and we have over the years had a reduction in some of our enrollment. Working with Lori Schmitz, who consults with me on an annual basis, we have been able to cut some runs, not field trips or late runs, but our general runs during the day. We're down 2 runs from where we thought we'd be last year. A run is approximately $85,000. So working with her and working around, so I'm trying to be conservative right now, but we'll address this one a little more also. The fuel bid, we all know what's transpiring across the world here today. Fuel is out of control. I was shocked when I went home yesterday, and I think it went up 25 cents from the morning. So I'm $4 a gallon now in some places. The fuel bid they're holding on to right now because they're the volatility, so there's some increase there. Employee benefits up $300,000. We've discussed this in every level of the budget. This year, 12.5% increase. I planned on 15. Next year, I'm planning on 17.5. Very hard to gauge where we're going with health insurance next year and the interfund transfers. I think I screwed this up, but anyway, our grand total for the budget that we've presented so far is $36 million for next year. It's an increase of 2.7%. The revenue, which we're going to see shortly, is $35 million. As we stand here today, I have a gap of $740,000 to pay for next year's budget. And Aaron, I got to get to another section here. Is there an escape clause here?
Escape on the keyboard or
Okay, so let's go to three-part. My three-part budget for this year. $36 million, 2.65%. You can see our administrative up about 2.5%, capital down 0.47, and construction up 3.18%. Revenue, which we're going to talk a little bit now, but we'll talk about a little more tonight. Robert. Okay, I have two areas highlighted here, which is our taxes and our state aid. This $549,000 in the middle, there are some reductions there. Interest rates, believe it or not, have gone down more than they were a year ago. Plus, with the capital project, I'm not making interest on about $4 million that I spent this year, so interest is down. My BOCES revenue refund had gone down because that seems to be a downward trend. But the big number here is our tax cap number and our state aid. State aid, that includes the governor's budget from January, which was an increase of $325,000 over last year. That was good news. The taxes, this is what we levied this year, $20 million. That was 0.8% less than the year before. That's what our tax cap was. Our tax cap for next year is 3.57%. It gives us the ability to raise taxes almost to the level of that gap. Not saying we're going to do that, but we have to have some discussion with the board as we move through the month of March and into early April, once hopefully the state adopts a budget. The state aid number should change a little bit. Our applied fund balance, I kept it the same right now. There's some money there that we can work with. Also, one of the things that I've talked about with Dr. Silver a little bit, not so much with anybody else, but the money that has been allocated to us through the ESSER 2, ESSER 3, ARP, that money is for the education of our children in so many different ways. Looking at the budget requests that have come in and implementing them into a budget, there is the good possibility that we could use some of that money as revenue to reduce some of this. It means it would be spent out of the federal fund, which is not a big deal, but it's just money that would not show up in the general fund. That we possibly reduce the budget that way. So there's still a lot of information that's not known right now. There's still a lot of planning to do, but there's still a lot of discussions to do. And this tax levy for next year, which as we move forward and we get into what's going on in the capital area, is going to be very important. I introduced it last time. with our gaps and what's going on, but this is gonna be an extremely important decision that we have. I wanna thank the administration for providing me a lot of information. They're gonna provide me with a lot more, but it's a work in progress. My goal is 2 weeks from tonight, you hopefully are gonna get a number that's more finite. A number for a total budget that's finite. And present that to you, and knowing that there's 3 weeks before we're looking to adopt the budget. So that number at that time will be up for discussion, any questions you may have. I will tell you, all the numbers you've seen so far will have modest adjustments to them as we move forward into March 17th, but we're getting closer. But there's still a lot of discussion to be had. Any questions?
What's the soonest that you'd be able to get us the updated information?
I would venture to say, I will update you more than once. As it comes in, I will tell you the capital component and the administrative component, since I presented them, there have been minor changes already. I could probably get those to you early next week. This program component, I would hope to be able to get to you by the end of next week or Monday before the board meeting. Any other information that comes in regarding revenue, the tax thing is the tax thing for right now, but I'll try to update you, just send everybody the same email. Dr. Silver and I are always available for questions after we send out the information.
Okay, great.
Anything else?
You mentioned the funds that you could pull from, you said ESSA, and you said something else, what was the
ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and ARP. You know,
American Rescue Plan.
yeah. So let's take, for instance, field trips. Hopefully next year we'll be going on more, but there are provisions in there. It's an educational opportunity for children. There is a spot in there that we can say, okay, you know, this maybe, and there's a lot of money potentially built into field trip. Maybe we can move that money, spend it out of the federal funds. Maybe there are some educational supplies and materials that are on the high end that people want to do. And today I had a wonderful opportunity, finally, Matt Wyatt invited me into his music area to see some of the equipment we bought the past couple of years, and it's pretty impressive. Those aren't $25 items, but that was great for me to see, because I don't I see, yeah, it all sounds like a great idea, but so I think there's things there that we can look at that have been in the request, that we can channel some of that money, because it's not like they're one-time expenses versus hiring people, which what do you do 2 years when the money runs out? When this money runs out and you've already bought the goods, so I think dealing with talking with the administration, trying to plan that out, I think this is positive use of that money.
You have to use that money in a certain time frame?
Well, luckily for us, it's not quite an endless pot, but some 2 to 3 years. I think one ends at 9 of 23, and the other one 9 of 24.
Right. And 9 of 22, don't forget.
Yeah, we're still working on the original. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts when they give you money. So. Anything else?
You just have to be prepared for when it stops.
Yeah.
Well, the goal,
like you are,
that long-term planning in so many areas is important, because, in talking with my colleagues, quite honestly, most people will have a lot of difficulty spending the money. Not because there's not needs out there. Like, I remember when we first got the allocation, and combined it was $3 million altogether and everything. And I thought, oh, this will work out great. We'll really get a plan together, and we'll put in the grant. We'll ask for the first $600,000 or whatever it might be that we know we're going to be able to spend. Oh, no, you can't do that. You have to put in, they won't even look at it until you put in a proposal for every penny. And everybody here will tell you, we're sitting there throwing spaghetti against the wall all day long, trying to come up with some numbers to apply for a grant that you really didn't know what we needed, what it cost, what it all meant. So it's been a process, and I really applaud the people across the street that have put in so much time and energy, with greenhouses, theater. We're looking at trying to upgrade a lot of our educational capabilities.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Silva?
Now I'm on. Okay, a few things to share this evening. As you can see, there's been changes in the masking requirements. And this week has been sort of this ongoing circle of trying to figure out which way is up. On Sunday, the governor made an announcement that she was going to lift the mask mandate on Wednesday the 2nd. And we said, well, how about everything else that goes along with it? Contact tracing, the identifying of kids, the testing, and all of those pieces. And we were told we'd have guidance from the State Department of Health and Education Department by noon on Tuesday. Well, at 7:30 at night on Tuesday, when the guidance finally came out, we went, oh, this is really interesting. It's been most of Wednesday trying to digest it and figure out what we need to do, what we need to tell kids, what we need to tell families. Only to find out that the CDC on Wednesday eliminated contact tracing universally. So we're back to asking again, since that's sort of the core of the work in identifying kids who might be at risk, we're not sure where to go next. So tomorrow the superintendents are meeting in part of the time with Nancy McGraw, our local Department of Health person, and we're hoping she has some answers for us, but we're not sure. Talking with Dave and Jen, we think that about 15 to 20% of kids are continuing to wear masks. Most are not. Same thing with the adults in the building. It's probably a few more adults are wearing masks than that, but in that rough percentage. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks as we kind of resort what happens, and we're hopeful that the transmission rates in the county and in the school have been so low that it will stay that way. This week we had one case, I think, that were identified, one student case, none the week before and one the week before that. So we're hoping that it stays low, but without masks on, we're back to a 6-foot circle if we're doing contact tracing. So there are a lot more kids who may get affected if they have contact with student or teacher who test positive for COVID. We'll also continue our weekly testing of non-vaccinated staff members as the state requires. They basically left everything else the same, just took away the masks. And so this will be a work in progress. If anyone has questions about that, among us, we might be able to answer the question, but the answer might also be different tomorrow. So I'll keep you posted on that. For the board, April 7th is the BOCES annual meeting and dinner. If you're interested in attending, please let Norma know so we can let them know. That's usually a good event. We learn a lot about what's going on at BOCES, and the dinner isn't half bad. Third, Give Back Day is, I put something in the guidepost last week, but I need to make, there's a change in that, and I did an all-call memo letter to families and staff members this week. We have 3 Give Back Days left, not 4, as I thought last week. The teachers contract year added a day in the last contract round of negotiations. So it was 182 days for work year. Instead of 181 days, we were still subtracting the 181. So that was the 1-day difference. But the Give Back Days we have right now on the calendar, and it's all, of course, dependent on weather, is March 14th, trying to create a long weekend in the midst of this very long stretch of no holiday breaks. 4/14, which is the day before spring break, Thursday, and May 27th, which is the day before Memorial Day weekend. And if we need to, if we end up having snow days, these will get peeled back in that order. So the March day will go first, then the April day, then the May day. So hopefully we're going to take days back from spring break or any other place. So that's where we are with that. And just on a personal note, I'll be at NISCUS, the Superintendent's Winter Conference, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I will not be on campus, but Jen and Deb and Bob will be running the show. and I'll be available by phone. And that's it. Was there any
Great.
questions?
Anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. Next up, we have items that the board wants pulled from tonight's agenda. Anything? No. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? No. Can I have a motion? Motion Randy, second Aaron. Please proceed to vote. Randy's a yes. He's not getting the prompt. That is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, we have board committee reports. I don't believe any committees met. There's no old business. Next up, we have public comment session for items that are not on tonight's agenda. We have two. We have Mr. Curry and we have Justine Scully. Mr. Curry, you have the floor. Can you use the podium, please? And speak into the microphone so the people at home can hear you.
I still have a little trouble hearing you if you get the microphone a little closer to your face. When you turn to the side, it's hard to hear. When you turn to the other side, it's hard to hear. If you speak into it, I can hear better. The agenda is so vague that you really don't even know what's going on when you're sitting out here. There's very little detail. I would like to see more detail so that I
Okay.
have it to look at. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Justine Scully.
Okay, hello. I just wanted to, first off, thank you all for working hard and unmasking our kids. This is really exciting. It's a huge step. I'm sorry. But I also wanted to know that we will have your continued support, administration and the board, as we move forward, because I think we know that with the bills in place in the Department of Health and in our New York State Senate, that we're going to be facing vaccine mandates more than likely. The colleges have them, and it's deeply concerning to many of us. And there was recently a Stanford student, 22 years old, who died. She was a soccer player, and her college, Stanford College, had that mandate in place. There are reports of there are hundreds of peer-reviewed medical reports that note the myocarditis effects from vaccinated children, people, but also young children. So this is really, really concerning. Does the board and the administration have a plan in place that would advocate for our freedom of choice when it comes to vaccinating our children?
Our hands are really tied. You'd be surprised. We had discussed it, but the financial hit to the district would be extremely severe and compounded daily. So it's not something that we
How
could-
so?
You have to read the Department of Health issuance
Mhm.
to understand it. You can go on the New York State Department of Health website
Okay.
and see that.
I think that if we don't support the families who believe that we all need a choice when it comes to our children's health care. You're going to lose a lot more students. A lot of families are going to leave. And then, I don't know, Mr. Whitaker, what you can do with your budget proposal. You have, you decrease the attorney's fee. Maybe the attorney can work something out and put a plan in place to help our school with regards to standing against the litigation that's involved.
But I would suggest that you contact legislators and
Mm-hmm.
let them know.
I am doing that, and I'm
Yeah.
sure all of us
That's,
are.
that's where it gets done. It doesn't
Right.
get done at the school board, unfortunately.
I think that the administration and the school board can stand behind us as parents, as a community, to just enforce our rights and our freedoms. I don't think that that's a lot to ask.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay?
Next up, we have announcements, reminders, and upcoming events. I think I'll start with Ms. Williams this time. Or I'll start with Dave.
That's okay, I'm just getting rid of the.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Just as an update as far as some of the programs going on in the elementary school, I'd like to thank everyone and all the coordinators of our Bear Cub basketball. That is something that is a component, I believe the PTO is supporting it, but there are leaders of coordinating those events that have put in an extreme amount of work. And this past weekend was the first round of basketball games, and was the first time that our children have been able to engage in that kind of athletic activity. And it was a joy to see them. We had 2 gyms running, the secondary school upstairs gym as well as the elementary gym, with 2 different age brackets of students playing. It was, of course, adorable to see, but I would tell you at the end of each one of the competitions, there was a mass applaud from those of the spectators, and it was not because it was an NBA kind of game. It was more because it was just a joy to be able to see the students interacting with each other in such a way. And it was certainly a pleasure to be able to have all of the kids out there doing something that we know they love to do, which is to be with each other. So I'm excited to see what this weekend's games will bring, because now we'll be able to actually see their faces and all their loose teeth, because as we engaged in this week with the masks coming off, there were some students that I did not recognize, because we all know that students at the elementary level, they mature and grow so quickly. Some of the students, I had to stop them to say, "Is that you?" And with a great smile I was met with, and then some wiggling of teeth did come along with that, because they wanted to show me the lack of, or those that were on their way out. So that was very exciting. As far as academically is concerned, we are approaching our 5-week progress report for marking period 3. We are going ahead and enjoying each day with lots of learning activities to make the day even more exciting for them, just to continue to encourage students' attendance. We do have 1 other week of some of our dress-up days. So we are finishing up all of our lovely reading of Dr. Seuss books. Tomorrow we have 1 more of those events, and then we have another spring event that will come along with the students again. All of those opportunities are not just so that they can have fun and dress up, but it is to be able to continue to encourage their attendance here at school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jen.
I don't have any announcements, so here you go, Dave.
Bob did all the talking for you.
So, as I mentioned last time, we're getting into scheduling. We have set aside March 16th as a scheduling night from 3 o'clock till approximately 7 or 8 o'clock for parents who would like to participate in the scheduling with their children. Also, next week, Wednesday the 16th, 2 years to the date, we're having a music in our school concert. That's at 7 o'clock in the theater. And you're probably hearing much buzz, hopefully, about Color Wars and Competition Night coming up later in March. And lastly, I announced our Sal and Val of the class of 2022. Tonight I'd like to give you the remaining top 10. At number 3 is Vanya Kodakovsky. We have a tie at 4 with Samantha Morgan and David Allison. Number 6 is Teresa Conway. 7 is Brian Kelly. 8 is Patrick Kelly. 9 is Andrew Cox. And 10 is Alexandra Kosick. So those students have been informed, and it's great for our seniors who maybe we're beginning to see a little bit of joy as they see the light coming at the end of the tunnel. Also, I'm very pleased with the recent release of last year's graduation reports. We're up in graduation and down in dropout, which is the way we want things to go. But also, more importantly, when you look at the bigger picture, our graduation rate for 5 years, which goes back to the graduating class of 2020, is up significantly. And when you look at the 6-year rate for the 2019, it is up considerably. And what that means is we have students who unfortunately can't meet graduation requirements within a 4-year time. However, utilizing an additional year or an additional 2 years, they're able to meet those graduation requirements. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you.
Question for you, with the scheduling event you talked about, is that for all grade 7?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you. We're starting with grades 9 through 11 current year. Okay, we did have an assembly with them this week to talk about overall requirements as well as to showcase our electives for students and to remind them that our expectation is that they minimally take 6 classes plus PE, and that school is a full-time endeavor, which means 5.5 hours a day exclusive of a 30-minute lunch. It has been difficult during COVID to justify, and we've had pushback about kids having to stay in school more than they needed to, and students needing to complete more than the minimum requirements that might be used or needed for graduation. As I presented to our kids earlier this week, our current, minimum requirement is 22 credits across a number of different areas. There is absolutely no reason why students should be graduating with less than 26 credits by the time they graduate. The other thing that we're very proud of, and U.S. News and World Reports ranks high schools based on 40% of it being due to College Board advanced placement courses. We offer 0 advanced placement courses. So we are starting out in their rating with a top score of 60, which is what really hurts us. But what people don't understand is going into next year, we will offer a minimum of 45 college credits through SUNY Sullivan, and it could be as high as 51 by the time September comes. So a kid has the ability, by the time they graduate from Tri-Valley, to basically complete a 1.5 years or more of college credit at a reduced cost. So I really want kids to take advantage of that. And, they need to be here at school. Let's get them the coursework that's going to, help to prepare them best for when they graduate for either college or career. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next up, we have new business. We have the property tax cap calculation. Be it resolved, the board approves the property tax calculation as presented at the February 17th, 2022 Board of Education meeting and submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller on February 24th, 2022. I need a motion. Motion, Pat. Second, Rose. Is there any discussion? No, please proceed to vote. Randy, did you get in? Cool. That was unanimous. Next up, we have a bid award. General construction work contract 2020 capital improvement project phase 2. Be it resolved, the board awards the bid for the general construction work contract to Bast Hatfield Construction LLC for the 2020 capital improvement project phase 2 at $2,237,000. Base bid, $272,000. Alternate number 1, $246,000. Alternate number 2, and $347,000. Alternate number 3, for a total contract sum of $3,102,000 even. I need a motion. Motion Keith, second Danielle. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Next up, we have the bid award, mechanical work contract 2020 capital improvement project phase 2. Be it resolved, the board awards the bid for mechanical work contract to S&L Plumbing and Heating Corporation for the 2020 capital improvement project phase 2. Base bid $227,000. Alternate number 1, $16,800. Alternate number 2, $22,800. Alternate number 3, $22,800 for a total contract sum of $289,000 and $289,400. I need a motion. Motion Pat, second Randy. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. Did you say unanimous?
Yes.
That was unanimous, thank you. Next up, we have D, bid award electrical work contract, 2020 capital improvement project, phase 2. Be it resolved, the board awards the bid for the electrical work contract, 2020 capital improvement project, phase 2, to Mail Electric Company. Base bid $258,482. Alternate number 1, $4,152. Alternate number 2, $5,336. Alternate number 3, $7,797, for a total contract sum of $275,767. Need a motion? Motion Rose, second Brent. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Next up, we have bid award, plumbing work, contract 2020, capital improvement project, phase 2. Be it resolved, the board awards the bid for the plumbing work contract 2020 capital improvement project, phase 2, to S&L Plumbing and Heating Corporation. Base bid $283,000. Alternate number 1, $15,000. Alternate number 2, $25,000. Alternate number 3, $70,000. For a total contract sum of $393,000. Need a motion? Motion Randy, second Pat. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. That was unanimous. Thank you. Next up, we have discussion and possible nomination of a BOCES board candidate. I don't,
If I may,
yes, please.
so Kathy Russo has been the district's representative on the BOCES board, and we received a letter from her this week saying she's not running again for another term. So we have a vacancy, and the board can nominate whoever they would like to serve on the BOCES board.
I'll run. You guys want me?
Individual who serves, they do not need to be a current sitting board member, correct?
No, they do not. They just have to be a resident of the district.
So what does the BOCES board do?
Pretty much the same thing you guys do for BOCES. Approve programs, personnel, supervise the district as a whole. It's basically the same duties, it's just for BOCES.
This individual will be voted upon at the meeting in early April. Did you say the 7th was the BOCES meeting?
The
Or
vote,
actually, those individuals typically speak at that meeting.
yeah,
Whoever we're gonna nominate.
right, we need to nominate somebody by Monday, March 28th, and on April 26th is when the vote is.
And you just received that letter, so this is not going to put out publicly for anyone.
No, it has not.
No.
I think that's the first order of business to put it out there. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll get it on the website.
All right. So we table that? Norma? Next up, we have the proposed establishment of 2022 Capital Reserve Fund. Bob?
Aaron, can we get back to my thing here, 'cause- Well, I'll probably go over there.
The ones I closed, yes.
One thing I do have to apologize, if you, the attachment that's on that, can you all open that?
Mm-hmm.
At the last board meeting, I had introduced this projection moving forward. And this is sort of, was the first shot to let you know why this capital reserve fund resolution we feel is needed. I want you to look at this line here where it says debt expense. As you can see, 2 years ago, this year, next year, maintaining a $1.273 million ballpark. That's part of the general fund budget. Next school year, 22-23, we have debt expense of $1.273 million. Next June, we'll be paying off one of our largest bonds. It's year 15. The only bond left that we will have debt and principal payments for the 23-24 school year is the bond that we just took this year. We have a $910,000 drop in that line item. In our own personal lives, that's the greatest thing you can do. We paid off our house, we paid off our car, we're in great shape. Most people philosophically, in my position, try to maintain this line item to be relatively the same. And let's examine why. If I lowered the budget by $900,000, everybody in this room would be ecstatic if they had to pay less taxes. 3 years down the road, we have to bond something and I have to raise my budget by $900,000, everybody'd shoot me. So that is why philosophically, schools try to maintain a relatively stable area there. In the proposal for the Capital Reserve Fund 2022, we're looking down the road. This current project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, are taking care of quite a few of our needs, but not all of them. Next year, we're due for another 5-year building condition survey. We've already looked at a few areas. We have we have some big things coming up that we have to take a look at. We will need more building projects, as with any school does. The request there makes the funding of this up to $20 million. Up to $20 million, that's just an up to. It could be $1, could be $1 million, but we're going to ask voters to fund it up to $20 million. Where do we get that money from? So every year we have the ability to apply some of our fund balance from our operating expenses to a variety of different reserves. We also may have some money left over from this capital reserve fund when all is said and done. But I've got a $900,000 hole every year. The part of that resolution that says that we can put up to $750,000 a year into the capital reserve fund would create a line item in the general fund budget that could be up to $750,000. Might be $1, might be $0, might be $300. It could be any value in between as we finish the school year. But the reason these things are so intertwined, 2 years ago, our tax levy was $21 million. Last year, because of the anomaly with the extra building aid and stuff, we had a negative tax cap. This year, we levied $168,000 less than the previous year. Now, as things move forward, lost that building aid. Building aid lasts for 15 years. That remained the same. This is the big nut here. 3.57%. We could increase our tax levy by $750,000. I don't think that's a wise idea. It's above the perceived 2% tax cap. But if we don't maintain what we're doing the following year, if everything remained the same, we're going to have a negative tax cap of $600,000. So as you can see, what we'd be able to tax is falling down year after year. And it might happen that way. We have to plan for the future. This capital fund resolution allows us the opportunity and the flexibility to address every year funding it and maintaining our budget levels at certain numbers. Plus, it will allow us to build up funds to do one, if not two, projects down the road. That's not to say that we can't bond more money down the road. And it's also not to say that we may not be getting more building aid off of the current projects. But the future is never guaranteed. So trying to be proactive, talking with Dr. Silver, talking with our legal team. I've actually conversed with someone you may all well know, Mr. Ron Musson, a couple times, because Ron put me in this position because I paid off bonds, but Ron had a plan. And so I talked to him for about an hour today about different options, and he, and I told him what I was thinking. He goes, well, yeah, because that is the goal, is to maintain that expense at a relatively stable level so that you don't have budgets that fluctuate up and down. We want to spend our money on educational stuff, programs for kids. We want to maintain those. We believe that by doing this, we can establish a budget level that will be relatively consistent and not impact, hopefully, our educational programming. So the wording that's in there came from our lawyers. Dr. Silver and I spent some time talking with them. It's on there tonight for discussion. The hope would be, and almost has to be, because there are a lot of timelines, as Norma will tell you when it comes to getting ready for budget vote, is that you would adopt this resolution at the next board meeting. That gives us time to do all the legal work, put it as a referendum in front of our voters on May 17th, and let the voters decide if they would like us to establish a capital reserve fund. It sounds like we're costing the taxpayers money, and in theory, you are, but we're also trying to be consistent and maintain the fiscal stability and the educational stability of our district.
And what I'd add is, just to reinforce, Bob said the taxpayers would kill us. We would try to raise taxes $900,000. The reality is we can't raise taxes $900,000 in any year because of the tax cap. And so if you dig yourself into a hole, there's no way to climb out, because the only way you can get the money is to cut program. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So this is a long-term look at the budget, the finances of the district, within the constraints of the tax cap, and all the other issues and the costs that increase on a regular basis. So we just think this is a prudent way, at a modest cost to the taxpayer, that will maintain our ability to fund our programming for kids at the same levels we have today.
I remember discussing this with Ron Musson, and I'm surprised he took your call.
So was I.
Did he answer no?
Huh?
Did he answer and say no?
No, he answered. You all know I admire, he's taught me a lot. He's one of my 3 or 4 go-to people for advice and to let me throw my spaghetti out there and tell me which one strand I should possibly.
He's good for that. Anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so Norma, we'll move that for the next board meeting. Do we have to vote on this? Okay. Okay, we have no planned executive discussion, session. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion Pat, second Randy. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.